Before we have our battle, I'm curious to know, is your opinion about death still the same as it was before?
Yes, I remain convinced. There's nothing left in this life to live for.
I don't believe you. You have been the only one to submit your consciousness to mine so fully, and it feels the most like home. Touch my consciousness, and you will not be empty. Like you, I was also abandoned, and I fell victim to a fate worse than death. I was sold into slavery before I was even old enough to know what a slave was. My first memories were of the cold, hard shackles tearing through my delicate skin. I knew nothing of my home or family. I didn't even know my own name. The only thing I was sure of was my intense desire to taste freedom. So when the time was right, I ran away. But in those years, my captors had stolen much more from me than my liberty. No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't free myself from my shackles. The scars that bondage had seared into my spirit were so deep. It didn't matter if my body was free. In a way, it seemed fitting that I should remain in irons, held captive by my own dark past. From that day forward, a deep burning hate began to consume my already empty heart. So it only made sense that I should become a fighter. The more severe my hatred became, the more successful I was in combat. I soon earned a reputation of being one of the most ruthless killers Demon World had ever seen. Eventually, I grew strong enough to compete with Ryzen himself. But now, something's changed.
Let's go. If you're so unhappy, why aren't you dead? Continuing to fight isn't going to change anything, so you might as well put yourself out of your misery once and for all. For my entire life, I've never experienced the joy of being loved. I've had to endure being despised and deserted by my own people. And like you, I've tried to purge my pain through blood. Perhaps that's why I feel you understood me. After all, we're both only capable of expressing ourselves through our violence.
This is really quite interesting.
What are you mumbling about now?
Well, I could be wrong, but it seems to me that they're using fighting as a means to communicate with each other.
coward. Why didn't you hit me when you had the chance? I was under the impression that you were supposed to be a ruthless killer. The kind of competitor that's incapable of mercy. Why should your tactics change so dramatically because you're fighting against me?
Don't you know?
Those kinds of gestures are wasted on me. I refuse to be insulted by these half-hearted attempts. Attack me like you can. Now that's more like it. Now, my turn.
The darkness flame.
Your flame technique. I find it strangely ironic that you were born a fire demon, even though your mother's people are all ice apparitions.
My curse. To be born with a nature in direct opposition to my breed. With no choice but to consume everything around me with the flames of my hate.
Your hate. Now don't make me laugh. If it were hatred, you would have destroyed the glacial village long ago.
It's not hatred! It's longing! You just want to belong to something! You know in your soul that I'm right, Hiei. Admit it!
Hiei never battles hand-to-hand.
You know, for a fight between two heartless, ruthless warriors, this is uncomfortably bloodless. Why isn't Hiei using his strongest attacks? Do you think there's something wrong with him?
I can't pin it down, but there's definitely something in the way of his fists.
If you're having such trouble hurting me with two eyes, Hiei, then why don't you open your third? Unless, of course, you're the one fighting half-assed.